Today I'll be rehousing my Caribenaversicolor, one of my favorite tarantulas. This species is arboreal, meaning they like to live up in the trees. So for this tutorial, I'll use silicone to silicone some sticks and wood to the top of the enclosure. Big shout out to Lagarde, they sent me this for this tutorial and for many others that I'll be using it for. The first order of business is laying down the drainage layer. For this layer, I'm using charcoal, lump charcoal that I crushed up and put down. I then added a piece of screen that I cut to shape, and then I'm adding the top layer, which is just soil. I'm making this enclosure bioactive, so I'll add springtails because it will be a little bit more moist than other tarantulas that I keep, and it's really important that there's a lot of drainage and as well as holes in the side of your enclosure, because these tarantulas don't do too well if it's too humid without some type of circulation, so cross ventilation. So that's why there's holes in the sides of this enclosure, and I drilled some on the top, or melted some into the top. And here's the finished product. It looks pretty good if I do say so myself. And here's her old enclosure. This is what she came in, which is actually not a bad enclosure for this species, really. But it is dirty. It is a little bit older. There's feces everywhere because you know these guys like to sling poop. So I think it's time for an upgrade for this tarantula here. And I want to speak to Lagarde and their products just one time here. I do love Lagarde products. Definitely one of my favorite brands. And that silicone that I use actually has no odor, or very low odor. It has a little bit of a vinegary smell, but it's very light compared to, competitor brands. So I highly recommend it. It's safe for your animals, and it's quite affordable. So make sure to check your local store. If you don't have a store that sells Lagarde products, just look online. As I'm peeling away the web, I just can't help but to think how thick this webbing is. Like, it is very, very thick webbing. This species feels a lot safer when they do web, so that's why it's so important to actually have anchor points on the top of the enclosure where you glue cork bark or something else to the top so they can actually web. And here she is, truly stunning. These spiders just go through remarkable transformations. When they're babies, they start off as really blue and tiny, little blueberries, and as they get bigger, they start to lose some of that blue. They do retain a little bit, but then their legs start to get a little bit more red, and they do get some other colors kind of mixed in. And here I am trying to get the tarantula in the new enclosure. I'm trying to be very careful because this is actually a very fast species and they like to jump. So I'm trying to play it nice and cool and calm and collective. I am trying to hold the camera at the same time as I'm trying to do this. This is a very docile species. They're not aggressive at all, really. But they can shoot poop and they can jump and they can run very fast. They can dart very, very fast. So something to think of when you're rehousing this. I would probably double box or box the enclosure, so put a box around it and then put your spider into its enclosure while it's inside of a box, just so that way the spider doesn't run away. And if it does, it has a little bit of an obstacle to get to the top and flee, because they will jump. And tarantulas are very sensitive to falls, and even though this is an arboreal species, if it takes a hard fall, it could injure the tarantula, and we don't want to do that, especially when it comes to how expensive these adults can be. When keeping this species, I keep the temperatures around 70 degrees, 70 plus. I don't usually go above 70 degrees, but that's just how I keep it, and they seem to thrive in that environment. But hey, everyone keeps spiders differently. That's what I always like to say. There's no one way to keep one animal. So that's how I keep them. I've been told that these live around 10 to 12 years as females, and males will typically mature around 3 to 4 years. And although I've never kept one through maturity, this is my first one I've had that's actually this big, and I believe she's around 5 to 6 years old. Make sure you're subscribed, make sure you're following just to see an update on this tarantula, because once she starts laying her web, I will take a video for you guys. And if you have any questions, please leave it in the comments. And there are some things that can be purchased from my Amazon storefront that are in this video, so make sure you check out my Amazon storefront if you're interested in anything on this video.